Hello, everybody! If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that means it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. And guess what? This week, oh, it's a big show. We talked about it last week, and it has happened. Ninth Age 1.0 has arrived, a long road, and here we are. And we are joined this week by two members of the rules team. Joining me, of course, as always, is my own little game design cohort. It's Tom. How you doing, Tom?
Hey, everybody.
But more importantly, who cares about Tom, right? I mean, forget that guy. He doesn't matter. Let's talk about the people who are important. And we are joined by Diego and Philip from the rules team of the Ninth Age, and we are super excited. Gentlemen, how are you both doing this late evening for you?
Actually, perfectly fine. It's an appreciated opportunity to get into contact with our community.
Yeah, even though it's a bit late over here, I'm actually pretty excited about this.
Well, believe me, we are excited to have you. And we've had I've had a lot of people ask me questions and want to know who's going to be on the show and that kind of thing. So the Q&A is on. If you've got questions, we might have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end, but I make no promises. If it's quick answers, we'll do it as we go. So I'll tell you right now, we're gonna be very short on the news this week. We're gonna fly through it. This is 2 minutes because I want to get into talking to these two gentlemen at depth. We've got some cues prepared for their answers. So I was going to say some cues prepared for their A's, and then halfway through I stopped myself, and I was like, that is inappropriate. All right. So, but then I said it anyways. So, Tom, quick news stuff. What do we got this week?
So Flesh Eaters are coming. Pre-orders coming up this weekend. That's the Ghoul sub-faction for AOS. There's a mid-sized army box coming along with it, kind of like that Heldrath's Chaos box that came out a couple months ago. It's a pretty significant discount. In addition to that, these seem to be limited release. So if this is something that interests you, pick it up, because that Heldrath has been pulled now, and it's no longer available. So just in general, this may herald a new way of releasing models for them, where they do these larger army boxes, not the getting started, but the larger army boxes. They also, in this release, it looks like they're releasing a new unit that's a combination. It's from the Crypt Horse box of putting the model together in a way that did not previously exist, and that as a whole new unit. So again, something kind of interesting that GW is doing that is different, at least. Coming up, the Warhammer Quest board game thing. We'll probably have more news next week. We don't have a lot of information on it now. Just today, Forge World dropped that they're going to be releasing a new Bull Centaur sculpt for all of your Chaos Dwarf armies. It looks like it's a hero. It looks like it's going to be pretty fantastic. I'm thinking about picking them up.
Yeah, I wanted to pause on this one. So Diego, Philip, are either of you Chaos Dwarf or that sort of what was the Legacy Chaos Dwarfs? Are either of you enthusiasts of that force?
For the ETC metagame, yes.
Did you see the new sculpt of the Bull Centaur hero?
Unfortunately not. Diego, have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it either.
It's I will say it's actually pretty sexy. They released that other little guy. I don't even know what to call him. There we go. So here I'll bring up the picture. We'll do a little sharing with everyone here. I think he's pretty sexy in honesty, and I'm not a huge fan of this entire range, but there he is right there. There's the big boy, along with the one they had previously done.
Oh, that's meaty.
Yeah. And I don't know what size base that is. It's probably like a 92 by 50, which means that that's basically the size of a chariot base.
Yeah, it's a huge miniature. I think it's bigger than the regular miniature bulls, which is obviously fitting for a hero. But it's definitely something I will not be keen on facing.
Yeah, I gotta say, I am really impressed by this sculpt. I like it a lot. It feels super classic, yet I love the face mask, like the sort of armor scale on his chest, just everything about him. This one's aces for me. Yeah.
It's a beautiful mini.
He also, I think, would be a sweet Dragon Ogre or Shaggoth, any of those kinds of things, right? All those you could stand him in for all that stuff.
Yeah,
I've always been a fan of that guy.
I think that Chaos Dwarf there actually is the like the event special Warhammer Fest, like the new like Sorcerer Prophet guy that's available. He's not up on the website at all. So I think that's one of their limited release ones that you're seeing there.
Yes, it is. All right, so that's basically the news.
Yeah, I was going to say, that said, the big news this week, obviously, is the release of 1.0 for 9th Age, which that's what we're doing the show about.
Exactly. There you go. And that's where we turn to these fine gentlemen. But so I wanted to start and kind of think about this in terms of a lot of different ways because obviously I want to still do our pick of the week. And so the question at the beginning is, you gentlemen being heavily involved throughout this, now that 1.0 is launched, I've been seeing lots of, army reviews and just general reviews, the rules go up. But is there any particular resource or blog or video or anything that both of you would want to direct our viewers to, be they new to 9th Age or experienced 9th Agers who followed along in the project?
I would have one. Our background at our team is currently producing the Sylvan Elves Army book, which is new money for Wood Elves. And they released, I think, on our Facebook page and on our Twitter account, some artwork. And in my opinion, it is just outstanding. And what our art department is putting out there is just top-notch. And I really appreciate the artwork and the way they are doing stuff.
For the more competitive people, not that the artwork is something to be sneezed at. I actually love it. But I want to share a tool that is developed by Michael from Denmark. It's called Keeper. Some of you may know Torrent of Fire. This is a similar tool, but it's exceptionally more light. We have had problems with Torrent of Fire in the past because it's very heavy. So that causes problems when you don't have a very good connection and when you have a lot of players connecting at the same time. I think Keeper is a very good alternative. It's completely free, and it basically provides the same functionality that Torrent of Fire does. I'm trying to share my screen, but I don't know really how to do it.
Sure, we'll lock it on you, and then up in the top left, you've got a little white arrow in a green box. Just click that, and it should be your screen.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, here it is. Are you seeing the? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's super easy. Tournekeeper.net. It's very intuitive, but I will leave to the players to find out all the intricate details of it. Just be aware of its use and its existence.
Very cool. I will link that. It's a very simple address, but I'll still put the link down in the show notes just so everybody can easily get at that. Super cool. Yeah, I like that. That's awesome. All right. Tom, did you have any pick this week?
Well, mine's not related to 9th Age specifically, but friend of the show, Andy 2D6, did a battle report this last week called The Porkening that I want to encourage everyone to check out. It is quite humorous, is all that I'll say.
Fair enough. Well, with a name like Porkening, it can't be that bad. Porkins was my favorite character in Star Wars. I mean, I like bacon. It all makes sense. It fits. I would point everybody to Tuna Sandwichify's channel. Friend of the show, Tuna Sandwichify, has been on here. It's been a little while since we've had him on, but he's going to come back, I'm sure, sometime soon. He did a very nice army book review for the Warriors of the Dark Gods, version 1. He got that out just whip quick, man. Just boom! He was ready to go.
I think we lost Vincent.
Yeah, we did.
That's quite the pose that he's in.
That's epic.
It is quite epic. Oh, there he is. Oh, is he back?
I'm back. Yes. My God, of all the times to have internet connection problems, this has been the day. I don't know where I left off. Tuna Sandwichify, Warrior of the Dark Gods, version 1.0 Army Review. It's awesome. Go check it out. I'll put the link. There we go. Okay. All right. Now let's turn to some hobby time. So, you know, I've made this joke before the show that I think you gentlemen probably don't have a lot of free hobby time recently, but we'll try it anyways. So, Diego, what have you been filling your hobby time with recently?
I've been recently starting up a vampire count army that makes for a lot of models to build up, as you know. Fortunately, I'm not even doing the painting because that will take up another month of my hobby time. But yeah, modeling alone is quite a lot of time because there are many models for such an army. And obviously, I still like to enjoy my tournaments and my practicing games. I'm also expending most of my hobby time apart from the 9-page rules team tasks. I'm also part of the organizational crew of the ETC. It's probably well known. So we are in this moment organizing all the details to have everything perfect for our players there in Athens, in Greece. And I am also organizing the national classification tournament for this very ATC. So this weekend actually we will find out who is the winner and who classifies to represent Team Spain in the ETC 2016 in Athens. And that's pretty much it.
Nice. So your hobby time is jam-packed. That's what I'm hearing here. I like it. That is not. There's not a free minute. You're turning hobby time into almost work time. Like you're right on the border, buddy. Let me tell you what.
Yeah. Actually, I have just recently taken up a job. I will be starting on 26th of May because at the moment I'm unemployed. I was in between jobs, so that was a lot of free time for me. But it's going to stop, and I am not really looking forward to that.
Well, that worked out well. It was nice they managed to, like, you know, to sort of slot the employment right there after 1.0. So that's good. Yeah. It was friendly of them.
Timing was perfect.
There you go. Philip, what about yourself, sir? What's on your hobby timetable?
Currently, I'm organizing the Austrian ETC team, setting up boot camps. We are trying to get everyone on board, list creation, find the broken stuff that the rules team couldn't find. And besides that, I'm completing my rather large High Elf collection. I'm looking at my Empire of Sonstal, which wants some love too, and of course my vampire accounts always need new models to be painted, but that's an endless task. Like Diego will know in the future.
Much like the zombie horde itself, it's a task that's never really finished. It always keeps coming. Yes, I get it. It sounds to me, Philip, like you find yourself in much the same boat as my co-host, whose eyes at collecting the unpainted models are always faster than his hands at painting the models. It's weird how that works.
I only have like 65,000 points worth of gray models or something like that. So.
Sure, nothing. It's basically nothing. Yeah. All right. Tom, what about yourself, man? What are you hobbying on?
I am in between projects. I put the dwarves away, and I am exploring possibly starting some chaos. And so I am in the research phase of the hobbying for a new paint scheme for Nurgle. Maybe we'll see. I know it's something that's something Vince will never touch, and so I felt like I would go into the territory that Vince has refused to explore.
That is correct. I have 3, 4 Chaos armies, whatever. None of them are Nurgle. I will never own a Nurgle model. I will never paint a Nurgle model. That is my solemn swear. I will cover every other god and beastman and every monster that you can shove into Chaos. I will never touch a Nurgle model. Draw a line in the sand.
I know it burns you up that Archeon has the Nurgle keyword in AOS, like branded on him. So you just can't
It
get away
does.
from actually owning a Nurgle model now.
Well, I can't saw that dumb head off of him, which I did. So there you go. Take that. I can fix that. I might not be able to fix whatever's printed, but I can saw a stupid thing off a model. Speaking of chaos, I finished up, or I'm finishing up. He's not quite done, but new little Beast Man, Beast Lord, or sort of champion there. That kind of guy. I don't know. I have no idea what range this guy's from. He got inherited at some point from a collection. I know that's terrible, like, resolution, but he's a really sweet little model. Real, like, heavy armored sort of Beast Lord. Super cool. I found him and I was like, yeah, who doesn't like more champion Beastmen? There you go. So the herd grows. That's what's important. But let's turn to our feature, right? Let's get into the meat of it. Enough of this other nonsense. Who cares? We know what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk to these fine gentlemen. And before we get into the questions, Diego and Philip, I thought maybe if we could start by just having you kind of introduce, who you are, how long you've been involved, what do you do, like, what did you do on a weekly, daily basis? Just kind of a high-level thing. I'm not looking for a beat-by-beat, but, 40,000 foot. And here's the real question that I want to get an answer from, okay? Here's my number one question, separate from the sort of ninth age related questions I posed in the email. One thing that I repeat all the time on this show is that all of us as a community need to be basically thanking all of you on a daily basis for putting in so much work of your own free volition, just an ungodly amount of time you have dedicated. And so I want to make that real by having you estimate how much time you have spent per week, dedicated to the ninth age. Just give me a ballpark, because I bet that number is scary. So, Diego, if you want to kick us off, how'd you get involved? How long you've been involved? What did you do? And how much time does this take up on a weekly basis? Did it take up?
Well, I got involved at first in August of last year, when we all know what happened with our beloved game. So this all started in the Warhammer forum as just a random thread where we decided to jump on that wagon that has been mentioned many times before now. That is, that community should take up the game and take it under their own command instead of being at someone else's servitude. So the moment and the timing was perfect to actually do it. So we gathered together people of ETC background. We knew each other from the ETC Army Restriction Committee, which is a group that in the previous years did something more or less similar to what we are doing now, except on a much smaller basis, only for the ETC to be used, although this was used also outside the ETC in lots of countries. And we also joined up with the people from the Swedish Swecom. It's also another very famous composition system for Warhammer fantasy battles. So we basically joined in, and with also the inappreciable help of Philip, not this one Philip that we have present here, but another one who is also named Philip and goes by the nickname of Tiny, who volunteered to be like our manager, and he also take care of all the IT stuff, and he's actually a very important driving force. In the background, he's not maybe the first face, but he's very important. So we all gathered together, and it was the 6 of us, and started doing a fantasy war game from scratch. Now, how many time does this take for me? Directly working on this project might take around 10 hours per week of real working time. But in addition to that, like we are all here nerdy gamers, so I also spend a lot of time on the Ninth Age forum, on our Spanish community forum, and talking over WhatsApp and playing games, obviously, too. But that's not really working. That's something that I will do anyway because that's what we are. So that will maybe amount for another 5 or 10 hours per week. It depends. Obviously, if there is one week-long tournament like this weekend, it's obviously much more hours. But that's not, as I said, that's not real work.
Well, I think one of the secrets is when you really love what you do, it's never really work, right? I mean, that's part of course, the goal in life is to have something that you're passionate about that doesn't feel like work. And I think it is. Like you mentioned, and here's the thing, I would absolutely say that that's work when you're going into the forums and stuff like that, and you're reading and you're interacting with people, because that's the voice of the community that you all have heard and reacted to. That was our #1 complaint for years, right? Was that no one was listening, that there was no interaction, that nobody ever came and made themselves known. So I think that is a huge deal. I don't think that's, I agree, sure, of course, you might be surfing, the forums anyways. I agree with that. But I think that's a highly valuable thing, regardless, because it's that level of investment and that level of interaction from all parts of the Ninth Age team that have so impressed me throughout this project and shown it to be just a completely different animal from the world we lived in, right? That it's, as a community effort, it truly is, right? Yes, there's a group of people ultimately who are tasked with making decisions, but that doesn't mean they're the only people with a voice. And that's a big change to me, right? All right, good stuff. Philip, what about you, sir?
Actually, I got involved after the Warhammer Fantasy meltdown happened as well. As Diego already told you, we're both founding members of this project, and my starting point was the situation in Austria, because through all the community we had the fear that every gaming group would create their own custom hammer, and that the community would break apart. And I love going to tournaments, not only because of the competitive aspect of it. I mainly go to tournaments to meet people, to talk with them, to meet friends that I otherwise won't have the chance to meet. And we all had this big fear that this integral part of our life wouldn't be there anymore in the future. And therefore we gathered the tournament organizers of Austria, and we asked ourselves, what could we do to make the situation better? And then we did research, what projects could emerge, what could be the successor of Warhammer Fantasy. And there was this very young project that was whispered and talked about in the ETC subforum on the Warhammer forum. And I got involved. Then I recognized that most of the discussions were going on in the Swedish forum. It's a separate page. Therefore, I got Google Translator and actually translated all the forum posts from Swedish into English, which was hilarious. To be able to get into contact with the people that are trying to make this thing called... It didn't have a name back then, but it emerged to be the Ninth Age. And that was my driving force behind getting involved. I wanted this game to live on. I wanted the idea of Warhammer, having friends to play with, kind of discussing lists, driving together to a tournament, having a beer, making introduction games for new players. That's what I wanted to see sustain.
Awesome. So one question you didn't answer. So what do you think? Time per week? Give me a ballpark.
Okay, that depends.
I bet.
If we have a release upcoming, then it's obviously much more. So before the Army book releases, the 99.0, 1.alpha, now the final version, I think we probably have working hours up to 6 hours per day, depending on the workload that has to be done. It's not only the rules writing itself that's actually the easier part. It's ensuring that the whole system in itself works and that we have no oversights, that rules are working the way they are supposed to work, that sentences are written, that there can't be a misunderstanding. That's actually taking up a lot more of our time than writing actual rules. We have to ensure that the system in itself lives up to the high standard we want it to sustain.
That makes perfect sense. So in my game company, Tom fills the role of my lead developer. And so I'm sure Tom empathizes with you greatly, as I generally get the easier job of writing everything, but then he has to go clean up the mess that I've written and try to make it all work. So I'm sure he has a deep empathy for you.
Yeah, he'll write this and he'll get done and he'll be like, here, and then I have to spend the next like 2 or 3 times the amount of time that he's actually like written it to like organize and assess the data and look at the outliers and stuff like that. It's
The problem is that we have such a complex game that we can't think of every possible combination. And due to that, often problems emerge only after release, and that's very frustrating.
Yep. No, absolutely. When you've got those interactions, I mean, it's sort of an exponential build, right? So you've got to hope that you've covered all that you can, knowing that you'll never get to perfection, but you want to aim for sort of that Six Sigma, right? Getting it as close as you can without perfection. Hit that asymptote.
Possible.
Yep, exactly. Quick answer to a question. So Mel, the terrain tutor, who was on the show a couple weeks back, he said, talking about hobby, how goes the scatter terrain? Because I made him a promise I would make some terrain. Mel, I want to show you a couple things real quick here. I've got my big bag of bark stuff for rocks. I've got some of this here to make, like, this is hydrocal. The stuff that somebody talked about, maybe he talked about. There you go. Look at that. Boom. I'm ready to go, buddy. I'm in it to win it. Let me just say, I have not forgotten. Okay. I just didn't want Mel to think that I was shirking the deal. No. I'm in. Okay. So, at any rate, let's get into the other questions. So, the first question that I posed to you gentlemen was, for people coming into this completely fresh, and the reality is, certainly a lot of players that are interested in the Ninth Age right now at this moment are people who may be familiar with previous iterations of Warhammer or something like that. But there's also a lot of new interest out there, right? And so there's people who might not have had any experience with that game or even with war games in general, right? And so how would you summarize the Ninth Age for them, right? What would be your sort of summation statement about the game and what it is and what it represents to them?
Mm-hmm. Well, the Ninth Age is a fantasy battles war game. It's an immersive game designed for tabletop for 2 players to face off against an army, a real army. This is not a skirmisher level game, so it's a big detail of Ninth Age is this differentiation. That's basically what it is. It's what you see on films such as The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, The Battle of Five Armies. We have not developed yet rules for battles of allied armies, but we will get there, and you will be able to represent basically all that with a rules and balanced rules set.
I like it. That's a nice summation statement. That's really good. And I'll tell you what, I love the appeal to like when you mention like the Lord of the Rings, I just think of like the Battle of Pelennor Fields and like those orc blocks marching around, the riders charging on the flank, that kind of stuff. That's a good visual. It really does bring it home. Absolutely. Philip, anything to add, or you feel that's pretty solid?
I think for a beginner, you should ask yourself. If you're a fan of fantasy, of Lord of the Rings, then you shouldn't be satisfied with just the 3 movies. Our game offers you the possibility to create any battlefield you want, with your own idea, with your own background, with your own story. and you're the head of it. You're the general, and you're commanding your forces into battle.
Oh, I like that. I like that a lot. Absolutely. You are the commander of your own sequels that were never written. Yes.
Exactly.
I love it. That's great. Oh, that's fantastic. Yes. That's really good. Like, you got me a little excited just sitting here thinking about that. I'm not going to lie. That's a great statement. Okay. All right. So the next question I had for you gentlemen. So what would you say, so that's sort of our new people. But at the same time, there might be a lot of people who have played previous editions, right? But maybe they stepped away at some point. So what would you say to people who've played older editions of Warhammer, right, or something like that? And that doesn't necessarily mean 8th. I mean, they might have got out, back. They were like the 5th to 6th transition with Ravening Hordes. They were like, I'm out, whatever. I don't want any more part of this. What would you say to bring them back in the fold? That is to say, what do you think they'll find the most fun? What do you think would be a challenge for them? Do you think there's a big change involved? That kind of thing. Like, what's their learning curve?
Well, the first thing will be to obviously know what is the reason why those people left the game in the first place. But I think we have done a great job because we are in contact with the community, and we were part of that people that initially were frustrated by the drop of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So we know the feeling, and we have many friends who have also dropped out. So we know many of the reasons why people in the past have dropped out of Warhammer playing. So we have tried to cover all those bases. Like, for example, one reason why I have some friends, not very common, but it exists, is the stale state of the game. Before the end times, Warhammer 8th edition was in a very stable state, but so much stable that people often felt like they had already played all the possible variations of the game that they could be offered. We are striving to produce a product that will live on with new releases, with redesigns, with new armies. Will always have a future and will always be evolving. It will never get fully stale. And another reason, obviously, is the support for the players, the interaction, the rules support. The players shall know that their armies will always be playable. The armies will not get dropped, because that's something that a lot of people are irked up about it. My army is not supported anymore. Instead of buying a new army and starting game, I just quit this game. We are not only supporting all of our games, but we are also in the process of increasing our support for other armies that have been dropped in the past. So we strive to provide the community with what they want. So that's something that they will always have in the 9th Age. If some people leave the game because of personal situations, that's something obviously harder to assess. But I think that any problem that they encountered in the previous rule sets is fixed because we know our community and we know what are the major gripes that the people have in the past with the game.
Awesome. No, I love it. And I honestly don't disagree. I really think that's correct. I think that the 9th Age team has gone out of their way to make sure that that people understand that stability, that support, that engagement, right? And those often were somewhat of the big complaints. And it's funny because it's a tough line to walk. And I don't envy the 9th Age team for having to walk that tightrope, right? Because everybody wants a certain level of stability where they kind of know how the game plays to some degree, but also a certain amount of evolution because they want the meta to be shaken up. They want new forces, new armies, new units, whatever. It's a line. It's not for people out there that are just like, well, why don't they just do this? I understand and I empathize. It's challenging to try to make sure that you're balancing that accordingly. So yeah, it's just good. And it's good that you've got your eye on that and are trying to hit it. And the reality is, just knowing that that's a thing is the right first step. What do you think, Philip? Would you agree with that? Any other thoughts you've got on that one?
Yes, I think there is one major thought that hasn't been mentioned yet. We all know the feeling when we used up 30, 40, 50 hours of our hobby time to paint these spear elves that we just like the look of it, how they rank up, the silver host is landing in front of us, and then we put them on the battlefield and they get charged by 5 knights and run off the table. That was Warhammer 7th edition. And that's exactly what we tried to avoid. We wanted that every unit that is in our books is playable, because many players had the feeling that Warhammer got more and more pay to win. New releases came out, they were obviously overpowered. You had to have the new Demigriffins, you had to have the new Steam Tank back then. And that's something we actively don't want. We want a balanced game. We want a game where every unit has its place and its right to exist. And for instance, if you like to field a boatload of spear elves, then yes, that's a viable strategy. You can play that. And I think that's one of the big differences between our gaming system and other gaming systems that are supported by mainly companies, that we don't need to create rules for models. We create rules to have a game that's worth playing.
That is a very important point. I'm super glad that you sort of mentioned that and brought that up, because it is one of those things, right? That everybody, like, I don't think there's anybody in the world who doesn't know that demigriffs felt too strong when they came out, and it was just like, oh, here's so we can sell some demigriffs, right? No one's defending that. Whereas you're right, for there's no similar motivation with the Ninth Age being a nonprofit, the way it's structured. The rules are there to support a good game, nothing else, right? Not to support a profit motive or something like that, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point. All right. Next question I had, and this is so this kind of pivots into. I want to ask some fun kind of behind the scenes type of questions, right? This is where we enter the DVD commentary section of the show. So, what do you feel, and maybe each of you have a different answer, but what do you feel was the toughest army book to, quote, get right, right? Could be rules-wise, could be the units that were included, could be the fluff, could be anything, right? I don't mean, like, to balance the rules and that's it. I mean to get right in sum toto because of one sticky, wrench in the works, right? What was the toughest one for each of you?
If I may, I have two final candidates, and I am not really able to decide which of the two is the winner.
All right, go for it.
On the one hand, we have the Vermin Swarm. For me, this book was difficult to get right because, as Philip has explained, we want some game that is rather balanced, but we also want to keep the fluff and the character of the army. The Burning Swarm is an army known by its unreliability, and the unreliability, by its own nature, it's very difficult to balance. It was also a bit difficult to balance because of the heritage of this army. It used to have lots of complicated rules, exceptions to the exceptions, 16 pages of FAQs. So it was hard to get right in that sense of rules writing. How can we get an army that has the character of random events happening all the time, for good and for bad, but still being balanced and not being overly complex? But the other one, and
as a quick aside for you, Diego, I have a definite vested interest in that one, as you might be able to see right here. I don't know if you can really tell, but that's my Ninth Age force right there, all the rats.
Yeah. I can only tell apart a vermin demon, but that's enough to tell the army.
Exactly. All right, please continue.
Yeah. The other one is Kingdom of Aquitaine. Kingdom of Aquitaine was difficult to balance or to get right because its fluff and its background was very undeveloped. So we haven't had the luxury of a lot of time to develop the background of all our armies. Our background and art team is working on that, and they are working their asses off. But they have a lot of job to do and a lot of work. So we are not there yet. We will get there shortly. And that lack of background has been very troublesome for us, because it's difficult to make rules to reflect an army whose background you don't know. And we took many iterations, and Kingdom of Equitaine is probably the army that has completely shifted in its direction from one point to another. Some units have been greatly redesigned several times throughout the beta phase, and it's because of this reason. I think in the end we have got a decent product, but there is still some work to be done in regards to this army. But as I say, I think we will have to wait, and it's better if we wait for the full fluff and background to be developed before we continue moving forward. In the end, between these two armies, I think that Kingdom of Equitaine has been more work, because we have many more redesigns for them. We have changed their army-wide special rules many times, but in the end we have got it better. And for Vermin Swarm, we did it faster a little bit in the beginning, and I think we might need to add more character to the army in the future.
Well, let me tell you what I love about both your answers, Diego. So I don't know if you can tell, but the lower shelf below the Vermin is Kingdom of Equitaine. These are like Pegasus Knights right here at the top of my finger.
Yeah.
So clearly I make all the right choices. That's very funny. Okay. So Philip, what about yourself, bud?
Actually, I think Kingdom of Equitaine was the hardest book, followed by Infernal Dwarfs. Kingdom of Equitaine, as Diego already mentioned, has a very underdeveloped background. In fact, if you look in detail into the background, you see that there is a basic problem, because you have the lady on the one hand, you have the Shining Knights on the other hand, but there is no either spiritual or worldly counterpart to it in this army. The army doesn't have edges. The player is not forced to choose sides like in other armies. And for instance, it can hardly be explained that in such a noble society, peasants are living in poverty and got beaten to death and stuff like that, on the one hand, and on the other hand, all the things are great and we're praising the lady. So there needs to be a counterpart to the lady to reflect the more savage, bestial side of things. And I think that's one of the main reasons the background of the army often feels a little bit shallow, because you can't have an army where all is good. You need to have a counterpart. That's the one thing. And for Infernal Dwarfs, it was just the problem with Infernal Dwarfs is that there is the community of old Infernal Dwarfs players, like back then, and then there is the community that got into Infernal Dwarfs with the campaign book Tamokan GW released. And the campaign book, what many newer players don't know, represents only a fraction of the background of the army. And therefore we had to kind of balance out how much Tamokan do we want to get into the book, how much of the old stuff do we want to get into the book. And as always, it's very hard to get stuff right the first iteration. And we need, I think, several months after the initial release to get, at least in my opinion, a product that satisfies both camps, which was very hard to do.
That's interesting. I can see that. And you know your comment on the fluff of Aquitaine, you know, formerly the sort of the Bretonian ideal or whatever, that King Arthur mentality, right? Really, that's sort of society. And it's funny you mentioned sort of the divergence between the values that the kingdom seems to hold versus what they show, because I loved the 5th edition Bretonnia book, which was much more Arthurian, right? Where like any peasant who became a hero could become a knight, and so on and so forth, right? Like people weren't just dirty, living in hovels and disregarded by the nobility, and that kind of stuff. So it's tough. That's interesting. All right, here we go. Next question. All right, the 9th Age team has put hundreds and hundreds of hours into this project with basically no monetary reward. So I guess that my question, I mean, legitimately, that's true. Nobody's getting rich off of this. Nobody's really making any money off of this. So in addition to dispatching with concepts of Austrian economics, good God, of Austrian economics, what motivated you to join and see this project through? And what do you personally hope is the #1 thing players get out of this game? Like, what was the motivation that made you go, yes, I definitely need to join this? And what do you hope others who pick this up and play it get out of it?
Well, I have been part of the ETC chairman and also been involved in refereeing and in organizing the ETC, both in the international ETC and here in Spain. For me, therefore, it felt very natural to jump over from one organizational structure to the other, because basically the whole foundation of the ETC fantasy battles was going apart. So we had to keep that up. For me, the ETC is a very important part of my life. I have lots of friends. I love organizing it. I love to provide the players. I know that not everyone wants to organize everything. Some people just want to get there, have some beer, have a laugh with their friends, participate. But I love and I get a lot of joy in organizing this for the players, watching them enjoy it, and obviously I also enjoy it with them when we are there in the event. So for me, it felt very natural to join in this group. My experience with the ETC, with the competitive player scene, and so on, obviously helped. But I would have joined nonetheless, even if I hadn't those skills. I would have joined in another position. But I would have hoped to manage and to get this working. What do I want our players to get out of this? As I said, I want them to enjoy. I want them to have fun. I want them to not feel frustration when they cannot play their armies that they love, their beautiful models that are now outdated or are not competitive anymore. I want them to just enjoy, have fun. That's basically it, because that's why we are all here. Because if not, this wouldn't be a hobby. This would be a job.
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, that all makes sense. The natural transition, and yeah, it seems like a very valuable goal for people to draw out of it. Philip, what do you think?
Actually, I'm coming from a tournament organizer background myself, and due to that, as I said initially, friendship was very hobby related, and I have many friends that I wouldn't have get to know if there wasn't Warhammer Fantasy back then. And due to that, we had this big fear that this big group of friends scattered all over Austria, all over Europe, all over the world, including the ETC, as the big meeting point, would end. And due to that, I think what keeps me motivated is friendship. And I don't want to get paid for friendship.
That needs to be on a business card or like on a T-shirt right there. I don't want to get paid for friendship. I love it. I love it.
The thing that I hope our players get out of the game My biggest hope is that this will be the first gaming system that gets equally appreciated by the competitive as well as the casual gaming scene. Because back then there was always the big divide between the casuals and the competitive crowd, and I firmly believe that these days are over with the introduction of the Knife Age.
Awesome. That is a lofty goal, and I hope that bears out as well, because I agree. I've always felt that divide is like somewhat false anyways. Everybody's got a little bit of competitive, everybody's got a little bit of casual in them, right? Like when it comes down to it. I think most people I meet just like playing a good game. You know what I mean? And yeah, exactly. All right. So now let's get into a juicy one. And we kind of mentioned it earlier, of walking that tightrope between stability and new information, right? So what's the cadence you're looking at for updates, and how do you feel you can best, or how do you feel that that people out in the community can best participate in shaping those updates of any kind? That is to say, could be clarifications, could be new stuff. You can answer that in whatever way you're comfortable, but you know, what's that cadence, and how do we get involved?
Well, for major releases, we have had a tremendous pace of releases lately in the beta phase. People who have been following us know it, and we are now looking at a more stable rule set, at least for half a year or 1 year. In around 6 months, we are planning on doing some small rebalancing. Shouldn't be big rules change, only fixing small details that might have been overseen in this beta phase. But on the other hand, the other part that you mentioned, clarifications and that kind of thing, we are doing that on a daily basis. We have lots of staff in our forum answering daily on less than 2 or 3 hours. Any question that is posted on the forum is answered by a staff member. So that kind of support is always provided and will always be provided. But that's a different thing from updating the rules, from changing the rule set. We are also, on a separated matter, we are also now working, I don't know if I am able to say this, but I'm going to say it nonetheless. We are working on a beginner's rule set. We are still, the executive board is still defining what will be the scope of such a beginner's rule set, but it should serve as an entry point for newcomers to the game. And we are also working, Philip is actually very involved with it, might perhaps say a few words. A campaign that we want to launch off now that we have a stable rule set. So we will provide updates. Not all the updates will be in the main rulebook. Sometimes from year to year there will be updates in the rulebook, but what we want is to have a stable base, and on top of that base, on that foundation, we want to have something that the players can feel it fresh. Players that play lots of games a month, people that play all the weekends, can always have something new, something fresh, so that they don't feel that the game is stale. But at the same time, the foundation, the basic core principles of the game will stay at least for a few years, so that the more casual players, the people who play maybe once a month or once every 2 months, can still feel that stability and doesn't have to learn a new rule set every time that they want to play a game. So that's what we are working now. We now have the foundation, and we are working on several additional rule sets, add-ons, if you want. We will release them in the upcoming time.
That's super awesome. And let me just jump in. I want to really put a pin on something you mentioned, which was the sort of starter rule set, right? The kind of on-ramp thing. I think that's so important. And what's funny is that already we had a question. I was looking at the questions that came in, and one of them was from somebody from Alexander, who had said, "Hey, I'm new blood. I'm just getting into the game, you know, and it's sort of how do I deal with the complexity of learning it? Where's my on-ramp? That kind of thing." So there you go, right there. I mean, that's exactly how I think that's addressed. And I'm when I heard that was being worked on, I'm very excited about that because to me, that's just so essential, right? We got the new blood's got to be there, and that's the way to get people in. Because if you just hand them the whole 117 pages right away and all the army books and say, "Go nuts, have a good time, get back to me in a little while," it can be a bit much for somebody who's maybe never played a war game before. So having a simpler experience that they can participate in and then work their way in just makes total sense.
We are perfectly aware of the complexity level of the ninth age, so that's why we are working on that. Yeah, so I think that this is a news for our listeners. I don't think this has been announced, and that's why I said I'm not really sure if I was able to. It's out.
Exclusive. We got an exclusive.
We'll take all the exclusives. Also, real quick, speaking of the T-shirt, All Elves Are Dark says he submitted an entry to the official Ninth Age Wear contest, so go vote for All Elves Are Dark's T-shirt when it comes up tomorrow. So there you go. Everybody go vote for All Elves Are Dark. All right, Philip, what do you think there?
Just for starters, a word of advice: how to get into the game until the beginner's guide is published. I think you should get into the game like probably everybody else playing wargames did. Just grab a couple of miniatures, seek out a friend who is already playing and ask him to get the game started. Because playing the game itself is the easiest way to learn it. On the question asked, how people can best participate in shaping the updates, actually our homepage is one of the few where reading the announcements is worth doing. And actually, it's my own shame that I haven't noticed this earlier. I bookmarked them, I think, a month or so back. And although I've written several announcements, going through all the announcements, I saw what treasures of information lay there. So if you're really interested in this project, then just scroll through the announcements because there's everything there. It's just quote hidden quote within the news section. For updates, as Diego already mentioned, we are going to do supplementary products. Supplementary products are designed to tackle specific areas that we want to cover. For instance, multiplayer battles, diplomacy, siege rules, which will come usually with a rules add-on for this specific campaign, for instance. But the specifics haven't been determined yet. We're still in the conceptual phase because our big goal would be to create a worldwide campaign hosted on our website with results that can be sent in, with an interactive map that changes depending on the results that are sent in, with a narrative storyline, stuff like that. But we have a very high quality staff members that have first-hand campaign design experience, and right now we just can't handle it from a workload perspective. And due to that, we are focusing on smaller releases until all the army books and the basic rule book is finished in full art. And afterwards, you can be sure, rest assured, there will be a worldwide campaign. If I have any say in it.
That sounds amazing, and I love that idea. Oh, that's fantastic. Sounds like Storm of Chaos, but actually for real this time. Like one that actually matters. Yeah, no, that's great. And the level of being able to see that interactive map shifting as those battles come in. Oh, that would be
exactly.
sweet. Yeah, I love that idea. Oh, yeah. Okay, very much looking forward to that. This is some good stuff. All right, we're coming down to the end of our time. Not that I wouldn't love to keep you gentlemen forever, frankly, and just tie you up and make you answer all of our questions. I think I might get in trouble for that. International laws probably apply. So I wanted to end on this. I was hoping to have a funny story time. There's been so many hours, as we've said so much, and I'm sure you've done so much work on this, that in interacting with all the other people in this project, there's got to be a pretty funny story that sticks out in your minds. So what I would ask of each of you as our sort of closing is funny story time, to share with us one comical, humorous story, moment, whatever, in the process of the design of this game. So there you go. That's my last one.
Should I start, Igor, or do you want to start?
I had one in mind, but I'm not sure it's really appropriate. But I have already gone out of the mile, so I will tell it anyway. At the start of the project, there was a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos regarding the state of things. Things were very in a blank state, lots of possibilities, lots of potential. There was, of course, lots of wish listing. And I was back then known from opposing this kind of everything for everyone, open, free for all. I used to use a lot a sentence by Syndrome from The Incredibles, which is, when everyone is special, no one is. I will try to, let's see. Yeah, are you seeing that?
Yeah, there we are. Yes.
So I got myself the nickname of Syndrome by a couple of users. I have now, the things are much more stable, and we have moved past that phase. Hopefully now the background and the styles of each army are a bit more established. So we don't have to do, well, I don't have to do that kind of sentences, and I have lost this mark. But back then, at the beginning, I was called Syndrome by some people because of this. Was my famous quote.
I love it, and I love that you took that line. You'll want to make sure you're not screen sharing anymore, by the way. But I really mean that. One of my central tenets, and Tom will openly tell you that one of my central tenets in the games I design is exactly that. That you can't, giving everything makes everything worthless, right? For things to be special, they have to be rare. Rarity has to be a concept.
Yeah, unique.
Exactly. So I love that you were towing that line, because you were with me in spirit right here. You're not the villain. You're Mr. Incredible for towing that line. Let me just say that. You're the hero. Okay, so I support you 100%. All right, Philip, what about you? Have you got a good one?
I hope so.
We'll find out, right?
Actually, I was involved, quite heavily involved in the High Elf and Dread Elf army book and the Vampire Counts army book committee. And due to that, an army book committee member from the Warriors of the Dark Gods wanted to play a testing game. So we set up a gaming table, we played a game, and he had this awesome kitted Chaos Lord with the flaming multiple wound sword and stuff like that, fully kitted killing machine. The epitome of being a fighter. And I filled blocks of spear-elves. And then he ran with his Chaos Lord on steed into my block of spear-elves. And after, I think, 2 rounds of combat and some 6s rolled on the 2-wound roll, the Chaos Lord was no more, and my Dark Elves had a new standard.
Oh, that's fantastic! That is a glorious victory right there. Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Yes. So did you actually model up some part of a dead Chaos Lord into the standard of your, maybe a Chaos helmet on the standard of your Dark Elf Spearman, just to make sure that it would always be remembered?
Up to the point, I have only concepts, but I have to restrain myself because he's my brother. He was a little bit salty afterwards.
You don't want to shove it in his face too much, sure.
Even more reason it being a sibling.
I agree. All right. Well, with that, we've come to the end of our time. But Diego, Philip, I want to give you one chance. Any final thoughts that you'd like to share out with the community? Please go right ahead. Diego, any final thoughts?
Just I would encourage them to try our game out. It's free. We don't charge anything. We don't have actually any occult or hidden motives. So we are here for them. They are not our clients. We don't want anything of them other than them having fun. So try it out. If you don't like it, give us your feedback on why didn't you like, and we will improve.
And also, if you don't like it, you can get a full refund on that $0 you spent to get the rules. There you go.
Definitively.
Philip, any final thoughts?
Yes. I think I want to highlight that up to this point, the Ninth Age was mostly seen as the game created for ETC gameplay, and it really isn't, because it is a full game. It will have complete background, full art army books, as we already mentioned, worldwide campaigns, and sieges, epic fights, heroes, special characters. Please, if you're a casual gamer, and if you want to play an interesting game that's not bugged because you need 20 pages of FAQ to read your army book, then the Ninth Age is the right game for you.
I like it. So I will also sort of, this is my closing thoughts. I want to just start by extending a personal thanks from me, from the rest of the community, from all of us here, to everybody on the Ninth Age, to you two who are with us, but of course beyond, to everybody else on the rules team, the executive board, the Army book committees, everybody who put in all of this hard work for the motives exactly as you said. These are all, I have not had a bad interaction with anybody. Talking to Tiny, talking to everybody has been so cool, so engaged, so passionate. And that is an amazing thing. And when products come from a place of love and passion, they're great products. They're simply better. So I would absolutely agree. Go out there. Go to the9thage.com. Check it out. We're going to keep, I'm talking to Tiny about how we can set up some more shows in the future. We're going to keep talking about Ninth Age as things go on and as news comes out, because this is absolutely part of my Warhammer world, and I hope that it becomes, you know, part of your gaming world as well. Okay? So there we go. Tom, any closing thoughts there?
Go download some books, read some stuff, and throw some dice. Give it a try.
There you go. What have you got to lose? Nothing. What have you got to gain? Everything. So got like a new awesome game to enjoy with your friends. That seems like a pretty good deal. You don't get many deals that good in life. You probably already own the miniatures. They're there. Turn around. I see them. They're right behind you. I can see you out there. They're right there. That's right. You didn't think this was two-way. It is. Okay. So, Diego, Philip, thank you so much for joining us. It is deeply appreciated. As I said, we'll be talking about it more in the future. And to all of you out there, thank you very much for watching. And as always, we'll see you next Wednesday.